Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, let me ask you today, what is stopping you? What is holding you back? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Is it the voices in your head telling you you're not good enough? You're not smart enough? You don't have what it takes? Too many people live their lives making excuses that keep them from stepping into the destiny that God has prepared for them. But I am here to tell you today, there is no excuse for not trying. You may not be the most talented, you may not be the most educated, you may not have the best background, but let me remind you that God does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. If you are willing, if you are faithful, if you are ready to take a step of faith, nothing can stop you but you. You see, success does not come to those who sit and wait for the perfect opportunity. It comes to those who try, those who move forward even when the odds are stacked against them. You may have failed before, you may have fallen short, but failure is not final unless you refuse to get back up. The only true failure in life is not trying at all. Let me give you 10 powerful keys that will remove every excuse from your life and set you on the path to victory. Believe that you were created for a purpose. You are not here by accident. You are not a mistake. Before you were even born, God had a plan for your life, but that plan requires action. God will open doors, but you must walk through them. He will give you opportunities, but you must take them. Excuses like I'm not good enough or I don't have what it takes do not come from God. They come from fear, and fear is the enemy of faith. When you believe in the purpose God has for you, nothing will stop you from trying. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Some people wait their whole lives for the perfect moment to take action. They say, I'll start next year. I'll try when I have more money. I'll do it when I feel ready. But let me tell you something, there is no perfect time. The time is now. The Bible says faith without works is dead. If you wait for the perfect conditions, you will never get started. You don't need a perfect start. You just need a willing heart. Overcome the fear of failure. One of the greatest lies the enemy tells us is that failure is the end, that if we fail once, we are done. But that is a lie. Abraham Lincoln lost several elections before becoming president. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. The great men and women of history did not succeed because they never failed. They succeeded because they refused to quit. God does not measure your success by how many times you fall, but by how many times you get back up. Work with what you have too. Many people make the excuse, I don't have enough resources. They say, I don't have enough education, enough talent, enough connections. But listen to me, you already have everything you need to start. David only had a sling and 5 stones when he faced Goliath. Moses only had a staff when he stood before the Red Sea. God takes what is in your hands and multiplies it. But first, you must be willing to use what you have. Take small steps every day. Trying does not mean you have to accomplish everything overnight. It means you must take small, consistent steps. You don't have to climb the whole mountain today. You just need to take one step forward, and then another, and another, and before you know it, you'll be standing at the top. Stop comparing yourself to others. But listen, God did not create you to be someone else. He created you to be you. You are uniquely gifted. You are uniquely called. You don't need to run someone else's race. You just need to run your own. Surround yourself with the right people if you want to move forward. You cannot surround yourself with people who hold you back. Some people will tell you that's impossible. You'll never make it. But don't listen to them. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, who challenge you, who push you to be better. Find people who will pray with you, encourage you, and remind you that with God, all things are possible. Turn your excuses into motivation. Instead of saying, I can't do it because I don't have enough money, say, I will find a way to make it happen. Instead of saying, I don't have enough experience, say, I will learn and grow. Excuses keep you stuck. Determination moves you forward. Every obstacle in your life can either be an excuse or a stepping stone. The choice is yours. Keep your faith strong. The enemy wants to fill your mind with doubt, with discouragement, with fear. But let me remind you, God has already given you the victory. You may not see it yet, but it is coming. Pray. Seek God's guidance. Trust that if He has called you, He will equip you. Faith is not just believing that God can do it. Faith is taking action as if He already has. Remember that God honors effort. The Bible says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord. You may not be the best, you may not have all the answers, but if you give your best, if you work with all your heart, if you refuse to quit, God will bless the work of your hands. And when you look back, you will see that every step you took, every trial you faced, every moment you kept going when you wanted to give up, it was all worth it. Brothers and sisters, the time for excuses is over. Your destiny is waiting. Your purpose is calling. The only thing standing between you and success is the decision to try. Don't let fear stop you. Don't let doubt hold you back. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Create the moment. God has given you everything you need. Now it's time to move. Because at the end of your life, you don't want to look back with regret. You don't want to wonder, what if I had just tried? There is no excuse for not trying. There is no greater tragedy in life than a person who walks through it without knowing why they are here. Look around you. Everything in this world has a purpose. The sun was created to shine and give light. The rain was made to nourish the earth. The trees provide oxygen and the rivers give water. Nothing in God's creation exists without meaning. And if the smallest flower in the field has a purpose, how much more do you? Too many people go through life feeling lost, feeling like they are just another face in the crowd. They listen to the voices of doubt telling them they are not special, that they don't matter, that they have no reason to be here. But I want to tell you today, that is a lie. You were not created by accident. You were not a mistake. Before you were even born, God had a plan for your life. He shaped you, He designed you, and He placed inside of you gifts, talents, and a calling that is unique to you. Think about a master artist who paints a masterpiece. Every stroke of the brush is intentional. Every color is carefully chosen. The painting does not decide for itself what it will be. The artist already has a vision for it before the first stroke is ever made. God is the master artist, and you are His masterpiece. He knew your purpose before you took your first breath. He knew what you were meant to do before you ever stepped foot on this earth. Look at the great men and women in the Bible: Moses, David, Esther, Paul. Each one of them had a divine purpose, but they did not always see it right away. Moses was a shepherd in the wilderness before he became a leader. David was just a boy tending sheep before he became a king. Esther was an orphan before she became a queen who saved her people. Paul was persecuting Christians before he became the greatest missionary of all time. What does this tell us? It tells us that your current circumstances do not determine your purpose. God does. You may feel unqualified. You may feel small. You may feel like your past disqualifies you. But God does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. If you have breath in your lungs, it means your purpose is still ahead of you. Now let's bring this into everyday life. Imagine a seed. A small, ordinary seed may look like nothing special. If you were to hold it in your hand, you might think, what can this tiny thing do? But inside that seed is the potential for a mighty tree. Inside that seed is the potential for shade, for fruit, for shelter. But in order for the seed to grow, it must be planted, it must be placed in the soil, watered, and given sunlight. In the same way, God has placed inside of you potential that you may not even see yet. But in order for that potential to grow, you must believe that you were created for a purpose. You must trust that no matter how small or insignificant you feel, God has something greater for you. Think about a young boy named Thomas Edison. He was told by his teachers that he was not smart, that he would never amount to anything. But he did not believe those words. Instead, he pursued his purpose, and today the entire world is brighter because of him. Think about Oprah Winfrey, who grew up in poverty, facing unimaginable struggles. But she believed there was more for her, and today she is one of the most influential women in the world. Or think about Nick Vujicic, a man born without arms and legs. The world told him he would never have a normal life, that he would never achieve anything, but today he travels the world, inspiring millions, proving that God's purpose is greater than any limitation. The enemy wants nothing more than to convince you that you don't matter, that you have no purpose. He wants to fill your mind with lies, telling you that you are too broken, too weak, too unworthy. But listen to me. You are not defined by your past. You are not defined by your struggles. You are defined by the God who created you. And He does not make mistakes. Some people spend their whole lives searching for meaning, looking for purpose in money, in success, in fame. But true purpose does not come from those things. True purpose comes from knowing who you are in God. If you feel lost today, if you feel like you don't know why you are here, I challenge you, seek God. Ask Him to reveal His purpose for your life. Open your heart and He will guide you. Because when you finally understand that you were created for a reason, when you truly believe that God has a plan for you, it changes everything. It gives you confidence, it gives you strength, it gives you the courage to walk boldly, knowing that your life has meaning. So let me ask you again, do you believe that you were created for a purpose? Because you were. And the moment you start believing it, the moment you start walking in it, is the moment your life will never be the same. How many dreams have been buried in the graveyard of hesitation? How many lives have remained unchanged because people were waiting for the perfect time? The truth is, there is no perfect time, only time wasted in wait. So many people live their lives trapped in the illusion that one day everything will line up just right. And that will be the moment to start. They say, I'll begin when I have more money. I'll chase my dreams when I have more experience. I'll take the risk when I feel ready. But let me tell you, the perfect time will never come. If you keep waiting for everything to be just right, you will wait your whole life and never move forward. Think about a farmer standing in a field with seeds in his hands. He looks at the sky and says, I'll plant when the weather is perfect. But the wind is blowing, so he waits. Then the clouds come, so he waits. Then it gets too hot, so he waits. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and before he knows it, he has lost the season of planting. Had he started when he had the chance, he would have seen the harvest. But because he kept waiting for perfect conditions, he lost everything. Life is like that. The opportunity you have today will not be there forever. Doors open for those who are willing to walk through them, not for those who stand outside waiting for a sign. Think about some of the greatest success stories in history. Do you think they waited for everything to be perfect before they started? Steve Jobs didn't wait until he had millions of dollars. He started Apple in a small garage. J.K. Rowling didn't wait until she had the perfect life. She wrote the first Harry Potter book while struggling as a single mother. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for not being creative enough. But he didn't wait for the perfect time to start. He began anyway. What if they had waited? What if they had said, I'll start later when things are easier? The world would have missed out on their gift. And the same goes for you. The world is waiting for what you have to offer. But if you keep waiting for the perfect time, you will rob the world of what you were created to do. Look around at the people who have achieved greatness. They are not the ones who waited for the stars to align. They are the ones who took action even when things weren't perfect. They stepped out in faith even when they didn't have all the answers. Fear whispers, what if I fail? But let me tell you, failure is not the worst thing that can happen to you. The worst thing is never trying at all. Think about Peter in the Bible. He was in the boat with the other disciples when he saw Jesus walking on the water. He could have stayed in the boat, waiting for a perfect moment, waiting for the waves to be calm, but he didn't. He stepped out even though the storm was raging, and because he took action, he experienced a miracle that no one else did. Too many people are sitting in the boat afraid to step out. They are waiting for the waves to stop. They are waiting for a sign. But faith is not waiting, faith is moving. The enemy wants to keep you stuck. He wants you to believe that you're not ready, that you don't have enough, that you're too young, too old, too inexperienced. But listen, if God has placed something in your heart, you are ready. You may not have everything figured out. You may not have all the resources. But if you take the first step, God will provide what you need along the way. A baby does not wait until it knows how to run before it takes its first step. It simply tries, and yes, it stumbles. Yes, it falls, but it gets up again. And before long, it is walking, then running, then soaring. That is how life works. You don't need to have everything in place to begin. You just need to start. Maybe you have a dream in your heart that you've been postponing. Maybe you've been saying, someday I'll do it, but why not today? Why not now? Imagine if Noah had waited for a perfect time to build the ark. Imagine if David had waited until he was older to fight Goliath. Imagine if Jesus had waited for a better time to begin his ministry. The world would be a different place. You don't know how much time you have left. You don't know what opportunities will still be there tomorrow. What you do have is today, and today is the only perfect time you will ever get. So stop waiting, stop making excuses, stop looking for reasons to delay what God has put in your heart. Because the truth is, the only thing standing between you and your dreams is the decision to start. Fear of failure is the invisible chain that holds people back from reaching their true potential. It whispers lies into our ears, telling us we are not good enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough. It convinces us that if we try and fall short, the world will judge us, mock us, and never give us another chance. But let me tell you something. Failure is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of growth. Look at a child learning to walk. The first time they take a step, they stumble, they fall. But do they stop? No, they get back up and try again. They may fall 100 times, but each time they grow stronger. They learn balance. They learn movement, and before long, they are not just walking, they are running. Somewhere along the way, we lose that childlike resilience. We begin to fear failure as if it is something shameful. Society teaches us that mistakes are bad, that setbacks mean we are not capable. But the truth is, every great success story is built on a foundation of failures. Look at Thomas Edison. He failed over 1,000 times before he successfully invented the light bulb. When asked about his failures, he did not see them as mistakes. He saw them as lessons. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. What if he had given up after his first attempt? What if he had let the fear of failure stop him? The world would still be in darkness. Think about Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He was cut from his high school basketball team because his coach thought he wasn't good enough. But instead of letting that failure define him, he used it as motivation. He practiced harder. He worked longer. And today the world remembers him as a legend. Even the Bible is filled with stories of people who failed but didn't let their failures stop them. Moses had a stutter and was afraid to speak, yet he led an entire nation out of slavery. David was just a shepherd boy with no military experience, yet he defeated a giant with a single stone. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, yet he became one of the most powerful preachers of the gospel. What does that tell us? God does not use perfect people. He uses those who are willing to keep going despite their failures. The fear of failure keeps so many people trapped in mediocrity. It stops them from applying for that dream job. It keeps them from starting that business. It prevents them from speaking up, from stepping out, from trying something new. But failure is not the opposite of success. Inaction is. Imagine standing at the edge of a diving board, looking down at the water. You want to jump, but fear grips you. What if I don't do it right? What if I embarrass myself? What if I hit the water the wrong way? But then you finally gather your courage, you take the leap, and you realize the fear was worse than the fall. The moment of failure is never as painful as the years spent avoiding the risk. Now let me ask you, what is stopping you today? What dream have you buried because you are afraid it won't work? What goal have you set aside because you fear the pain of failing? Let me tell you something. Every time you let fear win, you let your dreams die a little more. Every time you say, I can't, you give power to failure instead of giving power to your potential. But what if, instead of fearing failure, you embraced it? What if, instead of seeing it as a stop sign, you saw it as a stepping stone? Think of failure like a muscle. The more you experience it, the stronger you become. The more you push through it, the more fearless you become. If you never face failure, you never grow. Henry Ford, the man who revolutionized the automobile industry, went bankrupt 5 times before finally achieving success. 5 times he failed completely. 5 times. He could have quit, but he didn't. And because he kept going, he built one of the most successful companies in the world. Oprah Winfrey was told early in her career that she wasn't fit for television. Today, she is one of the most influential media personalities in history. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper because his boss said he lacked creativity. Today, his name is synonymous with imagination and magic. What do all these people have in common? They refuse to let failure define them. They understood that failure is not a label, it is a lesson. You have that same choice. You can let failure be the end of your story, or you can let it be the beginning of something greater. You can let it break you, or you can let it shape you. Because the truth is, failure is never final unless you quit. The next time you hesitate because of fear, remind yourself, failure is not your enemy, it is your teacher. The greatest victories come after the hardest battles. The most beautiful success stories come from the deepest struggles. So take that first step, try again, fall if you must, but get back up. Because God did not create you to live in fear. He created you to walk in faith, and if you trust Him, He will turn every failure into a stepping stone toward your destiny. So many people waste their lives waiting for more money, more resources, more opportunities, more connection. They tell themselves, I'll start when I have enough. But what if I told you that you already have enough to begin? God has placed something inside you right now that is more powerful than any amount of money, more valuable than any connection, and more effective than any perfect circumstance. The problem is, many people fail to see the gifts in their hands because they are too busy looking at what they don't have. Imagine a man standing in a field waiting for rain before he plants his crops. He keeps checking the sky, hoping for the perfect weather. But the longer he waits, the more time passes, and soon the season for planting is gone. He had seeds in his hands the whole time, but he never used them because he was too focused on what he lacked. This is what happens to so many people in life. They have the ability, but they do not act. They have the potential, but they do not move. They are waiting for things to be perfect instead of working with what they have. Think about David in the Bible. When he stood before Goliath, he didn't have a sword, a shield, or an army behind him. All he had was a sling and 5 small stones. In the eyes of the world, it wasn't enough. But David didn't complain about what he didn't have. He didn't stand there saying, if only I had better weapons, I could win this battle. No! He used what God had already placed in his hands, and that was enough to take down a giant. Look at Moses. When God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses was filled with excuses. He said, I'm not a good speaker. I don't have the skills. But God asked him one simple question. What is in your hand? Moses looked down and saw his staff, a simple, ordinary shepherd's staff. But when Moses placed that staff in God's hands, it became the tool that split the Red Sea. It became the instrument through which miracles happen. Let me tell you something. God will always use what you already have. There is a famous story about a woman who was struggling to survive during a time of famine. She only had a small jar of oil left in her house. It wasn't enough to sustain her, but when she brought it before the prophet Elisha, he told her to pour the oil into empty jars. The oil kept flowing, and before she knew it, she had enough to sell, enough to provide for her family, and enough to live on. The blessing was already in her house. The miracle was already in her hands. She just had to use what she had. Now let me ask you, what is in your hands today? Maybe you don't have $1 million, but you have an idea. Maybe you don't have a big platform, but you have a voice. Maybe you don't have every resource you think you need, but you have determination, faith, and a willingness to work hard. The world's most successful people did not start with everything in place. They started with what they had right where they were. Steve Jobs started Apple in a small garage. He didn't have billions of dollars. He didn't have the best equipment, but he had a vision and he worked with what he had. Oprah Winfrey grew up in poverty, but she didn't let that stop her. She used her voice, her determination, and her passion to become one of the most influential women in the world. Even the great Walt Disney was once fired from a newspaper because his editor said he lacked creativity. Can you imagine? But instead of giving up, he worked with what he had. He started drawing from a small studio and built an empire that changed the world. Success is never about waiting for the perfect conditions. It is about taking what you have and making the most of it. You may be thinking, but what I have is not enough. Let me tell you something. God specializes in multiplying small things. Remember the boy in the Bible who had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish? In his hands it was just a small lunch, but when he placed it in the hands of Jesus, it became enough to feed thousands. What you have may seem small, but in God's hands it is more than enough. So stop focusing on what you don't have. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Stop believing the lie that you need more before you can start. You already have everything you need to take the next step. If you can write, start with a single page. If you can speak, share your message with one person. If you can build, start with what you have in front of you. A mighty tree begins as a small seed. A great journey begins with a single step. And your success begins when you decide to use what God has already given you. So don't hold back. Don't let excuses stop you. Don't wait for more. Start today with what you have. And trust that God will multiply it beyond your imagination. Success is not built in a single moment. It is not the result of one grand decision or a sudden stroke of luck. Instead, success is the result of small, consistent actions taken every single day. It is the daily choices, the steady efforts, and the seemingly insignificant steps that lead to great accomplishments. Imagine standing at the base of a tall mountain. The peak is so high it seems impossible to reach. If you focus only on the distance, you might feel overwhelmed. You might think, how can I ever get there? But the truth is, you don't need to climb the whole mountain at once. You just need to take the first step. Then another, and before you know it, you will look back and realize how far you've come. So many people dream of success, but they never begin because they are waiting for the perfect time or the perfect opportunity. They want to take a giant leap instead of simply moving forward step by step. But the reality is, every big achievement is made up of small daily efforts. Think about a mighty oak tree. It doesn't grow overnight. It starts as a tiny seed buried in the dirt. It pushes through the soil little by little, stretching toward the sunlight. Day by day, it grows a little stronger, a little taller. It faces storms, harsh winds, and changing seasons, but it keeps growing 1 inch at a time. And years later, that tiny seed becomes a massive tree, providing shade, shelter, and strength. Your dreams are the same. They may seem small now. They may not look like much in the beginning, but if you nurture them, if you take small steps every day, they will grow into something bigger than you ever imagined. Look at some of the most successful people in history. They didn't start at the top, they started with small steps. Take Thomas Edison, for example. He didn't invent the light bulb in a single day. He conducted over 1,000 experiments before he finally found the right way to make it work. Each failed attempt was a small step toward success. Or consider J.K. Rowling. She didn't become a famous author overnight. She wrote Harry Potter 1 page at a time, often struggling through rejection and financial hardship. She kept going. She kept taking small steps. And today her books have inspired millions. The same principle applies to every area of life. If you want to get in shape, you don't need to run a marathon tomorrow. You just need to start by walking a little more each day. If you want to build a successful business, you don't need millions of dollars to begin. You just need to take the first step. Maybe it's learning a new skill, creating a plan, or making that first phone call. The key is consistency. A single step may not seem like much, but small actions done consistently over time will create massive results. Think about water dripping onto a rock. 1 drop does nothing. 10 drops do nothing, but after thousands and thousands of drops, the water carves through the stone. It's not the strength of the water, it's the persistence. Now let's make this personal. What is your dream? What is that one goal you have been putting off because it seems too big? Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to start a business. Maybe you want to grow in your faith, become a better parent, or learn a new skill. Whatever it is, you don't have to do it all today. You just need to take a small step. If you want to write a book, start with 1 paragraph. If you want to start a business, begin with 1 idea. If you want to become healthier, take a short walk. If you want to grow spiritually, spend 5 minutes in prayer. Each small step moves you forward. Each small step brings you closer to your goal. And let me tell you something, even if you take tiny steps, even if your progress seems slow, you are still moving forward. So many people quit because they don't see immediate results. They work hard for a few weeks and give up because they don't feel like they're making progress. But success doesn't happen in a day. It happens over time. Look at bamboo. When you plant bamboo, it doesn't seem to grow at all for the first 5 years, but under the surface, its roots are spreading, getting stronger. Then, almost suddenly, it shoots up and grows 90 feet in just 6 weeks. Was the bamboo doing nothing for 5 years? No, it was growing in ways no one could see. And when the time was right, its growth became visible. Your journey is the same. You may not see results right away. You may feel like your effort is going unnoticed. But if you keep taking small steps, if you stay consistent, your breakthrough will come. So don't give up. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't let fear stop you. Start today. Take one small step, and then another, because one day you will look back and realize those small steps led to something greater than you ever imagined. Comparison is one of the greatest thieves of joy. It is a silent destroyer of confidence, a barrier to progress, and a roadblock to true success. Yet, so many people fall into its trap. They look at what others have, what others have accomplished, how others look, how others live, and they begin to feel inadequate. They start to believe the lie that they are not enough. But let me tell you something. You were not created to be like anyone else. God made you unique. He gave you a purpose, a calling, and a journey that is unlike anyone else's. So why waste your energy trying to measure yourself by someone else's success? Imagine a rose comparing itself to a sunflower. The rose might think, I am too small, my stem is not as tall, my petals are not as large. But the sunflower might look at the rose and think, I am not delicate like that. My fragrance is not as sweet, my petals are not as soft. Each flower is beautiful in its own way. Each one was designed to bloom in its season. But in life, we often compare our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. Social media has made this even worse. You scroll through pictures of someone on vacation, smiling on a beach, and you start to think, why isn't my life like that? But what you don't see is the struggle, the hard work, the pain behind the scenes. You see the success, but you don't see the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, and the failures they had to overcome. Every single person you admire has had their own battles. The successful businessman who seems to have it all once struggled with doubt. The athlete at the peak of their career once failed over and over before winning. The artist whose work inspires millions once faced rejection after rejection. But they didn't give up. And they didn't waste time comparing themselves to others. Take a moment and think. How much time do you spend looking at others instead of focusing on your own journey? How much energy do you waste feeling discouraged because someone else is further ahead? The truth is, comparison will only slow you down. It will make you question your abilities, doubt your progress, and steal the joy of your own achievement. Think about a race. If a runner keeps looking to the side to see where others are, they lose focus, they slow down, and they risk falling. But the ones who win are the ones who keep their eyes forward, who focus on their own pace, and who run their own race. Now let me ask you, are you running your own race, or are you too busy looking at others? Maybe you feel like you're behind because someone your age has already achieved more. Maybe you feel discouraged because someone else seems to be getting ahead faster. But let me remind you, your timing is different from theirs. Your journey is different from theirs. Your purpose is different from theirs. There is a beautiful story in the Bible about Peter and John. After Jesus had risen from the dead, he told Peter about his future. But instead of focusing on what Jesus was telling him, Peter pointed to John and asked, "Lord, what about him?" Jesus responded, "What is that to you? You must follow me." In other words, your focus should not be on what someone else is doing. Your focus should be on what God has called you to do. The only person you should compare yourself to is the person you were yesterday. Are you growing? Are you learning? Are you becoming a better version of yourself? That is what matters. Think of a bamboo plant. In the first few years, it looks like nothing is happening. While other trees around it are growing tall, the bamboo stays underground, hidden. But what people don't see is that it is developing strong roots. Then, in the right season, it grows 90 feet in just a few weeks. If the bamboo had compared itself to the other trees early on, it might have felt like a failure. But it wasn't failing, it was preparing. Maybe right now you feel like you're not growing as fast as others. Maybe you feel like you're stuck while everyone else is moving ahead. But don't be discouraged. Your season of growth is coming. Your breakthrough is coming. But you must stop looking at others and focus on your own journey. Instead of comparison, choose gratitude. Instead of envy, choose inspiration. Instead of doubt, choose faith. Start celebrating your own progress, no matter how small. Did you take a step forward today? Celebrate that. Did you learn something new? Acknowledge that. Did you overcome a challenge? That is success. And the next time you are tempted to compare yourself to someone else, remind yourself, I am running my own race. I am growing at my own pace. I am enough just as I am. Stop comparing. Start believing. Keep moving forward, because your story is still being written, and God has a purpose for you that no one else can fulfill. The people you surround yourself with will either lift you up or pull you down. They will either push you toward your purpose or distract you from it. Who you choose to walk with in life will determine how far you go. You cannot reach your full potential while keeping the wrong company. If you want to succeed, you must surround yourself with the right people. People who encourage, inspire, challenge, and strengthen you. Imagine you are trying to climb a mountain. It's a long journey and the road is steep. If you walk with people who doubt you, they will tell you to turn back when the climb gets tough. If you surround yourself with complainers, they will remind you of how hard it is and convince you to give up. But if you walk with determined, positive, and strong people, they will encourage you to keep going. They will remind you of why you started. They will help you find strength when you feel weak. Look at successful athletes. They don't train with lazy people. They train with other athletes who push them to be better. Look at thriving businesses. They are built by teams of people who challenge each other, support each other, and share the same vision. Even Jesus surrounded himself with the right people. His disciples were not perfect, but they were willing to follow him, learn, and grow. Have you ever noticed that birds of the same feather flock together? You will never see an eagle flying with pigeons. Why? Because an eagle was made to soar higher. It cannot afford to be weighed down by birds that are comfortable staying low. Now, think about the people in your life. Are they helping you fly higher, or are they keeping you grounded? Do they encourage your dreams, or do they mock them? Do they inspire you to be better, or do they hold you back with negativity and doubt? There is a story of a farmer who found an eagle's egg and placed it in a chicken coop. When the egg hatched, the eagle grew up believing it was a chicken. It scratched the ground for food, never tried to fly, and accepted an ordinary life. One day it saw another eagle soaring in the sky and felt something inside stir. But the chickens around it said, "You are one of us. You can't fly." And so the eagle remained grounded, never realizing it was meant for more. Some of you have been living like that eagle. You have dreams, talents, and potential, but because you are surrounded by the wrong people, you have believed their words over the truth of who you are. You have settled for less because you have been influenced by those who don't see greatness in you. But I am here to tell you, it is time to change your environment. It is time to find the right people. It is time to fly. If you want to be successful, you must surround yourself with people who are going where you want to go. Find those who have the wisdom, experience, and mindset you need. Spend time with those who inspire you, push you to be better, and remind you of what you are capable of. There is power in the company you keep. The Bible says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Proverbs 13:20. Your relationships shape your mindset, your actions, and your future. Think about your 5 closest friends. Do they encourage you? Do they challenge you to grow? Do they support your dreams? Or do they fill your mind with negativity, gossip, and doubt? The truth is, you become like the people you spend the most time with. If you spend time with those who complain, you will start complaining. If you spend time with those who doubt, you will start doubting. But if you spend time with those who believe, you will start believing. If you surround yourself with dreamers, achievers, and people of faith, you will be inspired to rise higher. You must be intentional about your circle. It is better to have a few true friends who uplift you than to have many friends who hold you back. Don't be afraid to walk away from toxic relationships. It's not about arrogance. It's about wisdom. Your future is too important to be influenced by the wrong people. Look at David in the Bible. Before he became king, he surrounded himself with mighty men, warriors who were strong, fearless, and loyal. These were the people who helped him rise. On the other hand, Samson, a man with great strength, allowed the wrong people into his life, and it led to his downfall. The people around you can either build you up or bring you down. Choose wisely. Maybe you're thinking, but I don't have the right people around me. Start by becoming the kind of person you want to attract. Be an encourager. Be someone who inspires others. Be the friend who lifts others up. And as you grow, the right people will come into your life. Success is not just about talent or hard work. It is also about who you surround yourself with. Make sure your circle is filled with people who challenge you, believe in you, and push you toward greatness. Because when you walk with the right people, you will go further than you ever imagined. Excuses are the invisible chains that keep people from reaching their full potential. They sound reasonable, they feel justified, but in reality they do nothing but hold you back. Excuses are the stories we tell ourselves to avoid stepping out of our comfort zone, to avoid the hard work, the sacrifice, the risk. But what if, instead of using excuses to limit yourself, you use them to push yourself forward? Think about it. Every great success story is filled with obstacles. Every person who has ever achieved something great had a reason to give up, a reason to say, I can't. But the difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple. Successful people turn their excuses into motivation. Imagine a young boy born into poverty. He doesn't have the best education, the best clothes, or the best opportunities. He could say, I will never make it. Life is unfair. That would be his excuse. But instead, he chooses to say, because I have nothing, I will work harder than anyone else. I will rise above my circumstances. His excuse becomes his reason to fight, to push, to break the cycle of poverty. Now, think about yourself. What excuses have you been telling yourself? I don't have enough money. I don't have the right connections. I don't have the time. I don't have the talent. These excuses may feel real, but they are not reasons to stop. They are reasons to start. If you don't have enough money, let that be the reason you work harder. If you don't have the right connections, let that be the reason you network and build relationships. If you don't have time, let that be the reason you manage it better. If you don't have talent, Let that be the reason you train, learn, and grow. History is filled with people who refuse to let their excuses define them. Oprah Winfrey grew up in poverty, abused, and told she wouldn't amount to anything. But she used her hardships as motivation to become one of the most influential women in the world. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb, but instead of saying, "I can't do this," he said, "Each failure is one step closer to success." Excuses only have power if you give it to them. They can either paralyze you or fuel you. The choice is yours. Take, for example, the story of Nick Vujicic, a man born without arms or legs. He could have said, "I can't live a normal life. I will always be dependent on others." But instead, he turned his excuse into motivation. He chose to believe that his life had purpose, that he could inspire others, and that he could achieve great things. Today, he is a motivational speaker, a best-selling author, and a living testament to what is possible when you refuse to let excuses define you. What about you? What is holding you back? What have you been telling yourself that is stopping you from taking action? Whatever it is, it's time to flip the script. Instead of saying, "I don't have the resources," say, "I will find a way." Instead of saying, "I am not talented enough," say, "I will practice until I master it." Instead of saying, "I am too old" or "I am too young," say, "Now is the perfect time to start." Excuses are comfortable. They protect us from failure, from discomfort, from effort. But nothing great was ever achieved in comfort. Growth happens when you push past your limits, when you silence the excuses, and when you turn them into fuel for your journey. Think of a runner in a marathon. Halfway through, their legs start to ache, their lungs burn, their body screams to stop. They could say, "This is too hard, I can't go on." But instead they say, "Because it's hard, I must keep going. Because it hurts, I am getting stronger. Because I want to quit, I must push forward." And when they cross the finish line, they realize that the pain was not an obstacle, it was part of the process. Life is no different. The things that challenge you are the things that shape you. The excuses you make today are the regrets you will have tomorrow. But the excuses you turn into motivation will become the victories you celebrate in the future. If you want success, you must train your mind to see obstacles not as roadblocks, but as stepping stones. You must refuse to let excuses control you. You must be stronger than your doubts, bigger than your fears, and more determined than your circumstances. There is a quote that says, "You can have results or you can have excuses, but you can't have both. The choice is yours." Will you continue to let excuses hold you back, or will you rise above them? Make a decision today. Write down every excuse that has been stopping you, and then write a reason why that excuse should be your motivation. Let your struggles push you forward. Let your challenges strengthen you. Let your setbacks prepare you for your comeback. Excuses are nothing but stories we tell ourselves to stay the same. If you change the story, you change your life. So stop saying "I can't" and start saying "I will." Stop focusing on what you don't have and start using what you do have. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions and start where you are. Because the truth is, you have everything you need to succeed if only you choose to stop making excuses and start making progress. Faith is the anchor that holds you steady when the storms of life come crashing in. It is the light that guides you through the darkest valleys, the force that keeps you moving forward when everything around you says to give up. Without faith, it is easy to be overwhelmed by fear, doubt, and uncertainty. But when your faith is strong, nothing, no hardship, no challenge, no failure can stop you from becoming who you were created to be. Life is full of moments that test your faith. There will be times when the doors don't open, when prayers seem unanswered, when setbacks make you question if you're on the right path. But faith is not about seeing the way clearly. It's about trusting that there is a way even when you can't see it yet. Faith is believing in what is possible before it happens. It's trusting that God has a plan even when you don't understand it. Think about a farmer planting a seed. He doesn't see results immediately. There is no instant harvest. But he doesn't dig up the seed and say, it's not growing, so I give up. No, he waters it. He nurtures it. He trusts that even though he doesn't see growth yet, something is happening beneath the surface. And eventually the plant breaks through the soil and reaches toward the sky. Your faith must be like that farmer's trust in the process. Just because you don't see things happening immediately doesn't mean God isn't working. Just because you are facing obstacles doesn't mean you aren't on the right path. Sometimes delays are not denials. They are preparations. Sometimes hardships are not punishments. They are shaping you, strengthening you, molding you into the person you need to be for what's ahead. Look at the story of Joseph in the Bible. He had a dream that he would be a great leader, but his journey was anything but easy. He was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. He had every reason to lose faith, to believe that God had forgotten him. But he didn't. He kept believing, kept trusting, and in the end he was elevated to the highest position in Egypt, fulfilling the very dream God had placed in his heart. Faith is not just for the good times. It's easy to believe when everything is going right, when doors are opening, when life is smooth, but real faith is tested in the fire. Real faith is built when everything around you is telling you to quit, but you choose to believe anyway. When the bank account is low, when the diagnosis is bad, when the relationship falls apart. These are the moments where your faith must be stronger than your fear. Think about an eagle in a storm. While other birds hide, the eagle spreads its wings and rises above the storm. The strong winds that threaten to destroy it actually become the force that lifts it higher. That is what faith does. It takes what was meant to break you and turns it into the very thing that strengthens you. Maybe you are facing a storm right now. Maybe you are struggling with doubt, with fear, with uncertainty. Maybe you've been waiting for a breakthrough and it hasn't come yet. I want to tell you today, don't lose faith. Don't give up. Just because you don't see the way doesn't mean there isn't one. Just because the answer hasn't come yet doesn't mean it's not on the way. Faith is about holding on when everything in you wants to let go. It's about believing when the odds are against you. It's about trusting that even when the road is hard, God is still in control, still working, still making a way where there seems to be no way. One of the greatest stories of faith is that of Abraham. God told him he would be the father of many nations, but years passed and he had no child. He and his wife Sarah were old. From a human perspective, it was impossible. But Abraham didn't let go of his faith. He believed in God's promise even when it made no sense. And because of that, at the right time, Isaac was born and God's promise was fulfilled. Faith requires patience. It requires endurance. It requires the willingness to keep walking even when the path ahead is unclear. It requires trusting that even if God doesn't give you what you asked for, He is giving you something better. Maybe you've prayed and things haven't changed. Maybe you've worked hard and haven't seen results. Maybe you've been waiting and feel like God is silent. I want you to know, God sees you. He hears you. He is working behind the scenes. Your job is to stay strong, to keep believing, to keep pressing forward. Your faith is your power. It is what separates those who give up from those who break through. The ones who succeed are not always the most talented, the most educated, or the most connected, but they are always the ones who refuse to quit, who refuse to stop believing. If you want to see God move in your life, you must keep your faith strong. Surround yourself with people who encourage you, who remind you of what God has promised. Speak words of faith, not words of fear. When doubt creeps in, remind yourself of all the times God has been faithful in the past. If He did it before, He can do it again. Faith is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The more you trust, the more you see miracles happen. The more you believe, the more doors open. So today, no matter what you are facing, no matter how hard the road ahead looks, make a decision. Keep your faith strong. Keep believing. Keep trusting, because in the end, faith always wins. Effort is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It is the proof of your faith, the demonstration of your belief, the evidence that you trust in God's plan for your life. Too often, people pray for blessings, but never put in the work to receive them. They wait for doors to open, but never knock. They hope for success, but never take the steps required to achieve it. But the truth is, God honors effort. He rewards those who step out in faith, who put their hands to the plow, who refuse to sit idly by waiting for things to happen. Look at the stories of the Bible. Every miracle, every breakthrough, every answered prayer was met with action. When Moses led the Israelites to the Red Sea, God didn't part the waters while they stood still. He told Moses to stretch out his staff, to take action, to step forward. When the widow in 2 Kings was desperate for a miracle, the prophet Elisha told her to gather jars and pour out the little oil she had. Her effort, her willingness to obey, was what led to the multiplication of her oil. When Peter wanted to walk on water, Jesus didn't carry him. He told him to step out of the boat. And the moment Peter stepped, the water held him up. God does not honor laziness. He does not reward inaction. He does not bless those who sit back and refuse to move forward. He honors those who take what they have, no matter how little, and use it. He honors those who try, who strive, who work. Think of a farmer. He can pray for rain, he can believe in a great harvest, but if he never plants the seeds, nothing will grow. God may send the sun, the rain, and the perfect conditions, but without effort, without planting, without tilling, without tending the soil, there will be no harvest. The same is true in life. You may have big dreams, you may believe in God's promises, but if you never put in the work, you will never see them come to pass. Effort is an act of faith. It says, God, I trust you, but I also know that you have given me hands to work, a mind to think, and strength to move. It is not enough to simply wish for success, for change, for breakthroughs. You must be willing to do your part. Look at David. Before he became a king, he was a shepherd. He didn't sit around waiting for God to place a crown on his head. He worked. He fought off lions and bears. He protected his flock. He trained. He prepared. He did what was required of him in the place he was in. And when the time came to face Goliath, he was ready. His victory wasn't by accident. It was the result of years of effort, discipline, and faithfulness. Sometimes people think effort is wasted if it doesn't bring immediate results, but no effort is ever wasted in God's eyes. Every step you take, every sacrifice you make, every ounce of hard work you pour into your calling, it all matters. Even when you don't see results yet, God sees. Even when you feel like giving up, keep going, because every act of effort is a seed planted, and in due time the harvest will come. Think about an athlete training for the Olympics. They don't wake up one day and become champions. They train, they sacrifice, they wake up early, they push their limits. Day after day, they put in the effort even when they don't see immediate progress. And when the moment comes, when they stand on that podium with a gold medal around their neck, all those unseen hours of effort are what made the difference. God is watching how you handle the small things before He blesses you with the big things. He wants to see if you will be faithful in the little before He gives you more. If you are waiting for a better job, are you giving your best in the one you have now? If you are waiting for an opportunity, are you preparing yourself for it? If you are praying for success, are you putting in the effort required to achieve it? Effort is also about perseverance. It's not just about trying once and giving up if things don't work out. It's about pushing forward even when it's hard. It's about trusting that even if you fail today, you can try again tomorrow. Look at Thomas Edison. He failed over 1,000 times before he finally created the light bulb. But he didn't see those failures as wasted effort. He saw them as steps towards success. God sees your struggles. He sees your hard work. He sees the long hours, the silent tears, the sacrifices no one else notices, and He honors them. Even when people don't acknowledge your effort, even when you feel unseen, God sees. He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him and who diligently work toward their purpose. So don't be discouraged if things aren't happening as fast as you'd like. Keep working, keep pushing, keep believing, because every step you take, every bit of effort you put in is moving you closer to what God has prepared for you. Remember, faith without works is dead. You can believe all you want, but without effort, without action, without perseverance, nothing will change. The dreams you have, the goals you want to reach, the life you want to build, it all depends on your willingness to put in the work. So no matter where you are today, no matter how far you still have to go, make a decision, give your best effort, work like it depends on you, and pray like it depends on God, because when you do your part, God will always do His.